Welcome to Teams Tuesday. It's March the 16th, 2021. It's 12:15 in New York, 5:15 in London, and it's 10:45 in Mumbai. We've got a great speaker, Patrick Gamont from France, who's discussing SharePoint Spaces and how to start in a 3D VR world. I'm your host, Peter Ward from New York City. Stay tuned for the next 45 minutes. It's Teams Tuesday.
Hello, thank you for having me. This is definitely a session about what is SharePoint Spaces, and the best definition I can give you is to show you how you can create a SharePoint Spaces. So we will very soon go to the demo, and the next question we will answer is why would you need to understand or to use such a 3D space in a SharePoint site or in SharePoint intranet, or how you can embed it in Teams. We will go on these topics. So to start, imagine you have a Teams, a very usual Teams nowadays, when you can embed some people, for example, an annual event in your company. So let's switch to the real team. Here you can see the team. It was created to have our annual event in the company or in the organization. And for example, you can have one channel for a keynote, 4 channels for several rooms. You want to have several rooms for discussion on several topics. And you can imagine as well other channels about how to take some coffee, library channel, and some service desk, for example, to help people on any questions they might have. So if we go like that, on each channel, we can create one or several meetings like that. Here I have the meetings for my keynote. Here I have a meeting that was canceled, but it's not a big issue. Here I have another meeting and things like that. So you understand the idea that on every channel, for example, here I will have a meeting dedicated to a specific topic. To immerse people more in the space, my customers wanted to have something like a page. The idea was to create a SharePoint page to put the audience already in the spirit of a real event. And we started with something like that. So here we have a typical launch page where we can put the direct link to the keynote or to our rooms. We can put some countdown to the event, for example, and some link to the other channel, other spaces, for example. But this is a very flat, obviously very flat page, very flat SharePoint page, very cool and very useful, but my customer wanted to have a little bit more. So that's where we introduced SharePoint Spaces, and we propose him to create what we can call a virtual lobby for the event. So first, to better understand the connection with Teams, for example, here, if I go to a meeting in Teams, I can open the meetings. This is a very regular Teams meeting, and I can copy the link here to get a direct link to my meeting. This will be important because in SharePoint Spaces, I will be able to use the link to directly point to this meeting. As you probably know, every Teams is connected to a SharePoint site. So you can go to Files, can go to open your SharePoint site from here. Here I am directly in my document library. For the SharePoint, I can see all the channels. Each channel has a folder in the document library, of course. And so if I go to the main URL of my site, I can directly go to my SharePoint flat page to introduce my whole event. From here, it's very easy to create a space. So from here, we can understand that a space is a new big object created in SharePoint, but in fact, we will see that in a few minutes, that it's another type of page.
What's the difference between a space and a team then? Does a space go inside a team?
The space should be think as a page in SharePoint. So it's a specific page in SharePoint. So as a standard SharePoint page, you can embed it in a Teams, of course, as a tab in Teams. Yeah. So let's try with the demo. Let's call it New York City demo. You can define your space with a name, with some description. You can choose a structure. This is a structure that will always be there in your 3D environment. So you have several different structures. I almost always use the most simple one, which is terrace, which is just a terrace, as it is said. And from there, you will be able to add some more artifact in the space. With the other structure, you will have less space in your environment. So I will show you that in a few minutes. So here I have created my space, and as you can see on the top, I am still on SharePoint. I have the standard SharePoint menu, SharePoint and Office 365 menu. And I can see that there is a plus on the left. We are going to that. And I have some more information here. I can publish my space because you should, again, imagine this is a different type of page, but it's like a SharePoint page. When you modify it, you need to publish it. You can save it as a draft and things like that. So you have the option to save it as a draft, or here you can save it as a template as well. I have some option. I can activate here space design. So I can again change the name, the description, the structure, but I have more option after that. I can define some background. So here the background defines the image you can see. So here with my pointer, I can go from left to right or right to left. And you see that the person in the space is not moving. That's just the background that is moving. So here, by default, we have a very beautiful mountain and things like that. But if we want to have, can choose something like what is called illustration or full color background. I would prefer to choose a custom 360-degree file. So here I should have some recent images. And here, for example, I have, it takes a few seconds to load. Yes. Here, for example, I have the idea of an internal space where I can put my lobby, which is quite cool. I can define the ace at which the image is starting. So you can see. I can define the rotations where the view will open. So I can start at some point in 360 degree. I can add some very cool feature is you can add some welcome message. So you can record an audio file and it can give an introduction to what people can find in this space and what they can do in the space. You can as well choose for an ambient sound. So for example, here I could probably choose a little music. If I share the audio, you should be able to.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Trivia.
I recommend to put it very low because at the beginning it's cool, but when you hear that more than 10 seconds, it can be boring. So keep it very small volume or remove it if you prefer. So that's mainly the background and the definition of my space. So I can save it as a draft. And okay, we understand that we have a space, but definitely we should try to add some more artifact in it. And for this, we should go back to edit mode. And to add some object, you have the plus sign on the left that is very similar to adding some web parts in a SharePoint page. So here, for example, we have all our object or our 3D object we can add to our environment. In fact, we have 10 options. So the first very simple one is to add some image. So here you have a blue circle which shows where the image will be put. So here, for example, and this is a very simple 2D image. So here, for example, I can choose a map. a world map. And here I am. I can definitely choose where I want to put my object. So by clicking on it, I can have a little bar on the bottom where I can define the angle of my object. I can define the distance from the user, so I can put it closer, or I can bring it farther. I can modify the height of my object, and I have an option to modify the rotation of the object in every direction, obviously. You can as well try to manipulate it this way with the blue anchor. It's not so easy, but you can definitely do that as well. Okay, and you can change the scale of your object as well. You have another option here with the little pen. You can open a more option on the right. So at some point, if you want to change the image, you can open a change image button. You can use transparency in the image. You can change the depth, appearance. You can.
Patrick, could you give us some use cases? This is all pretty good stuff. Do you want to give us, where do you think the real use case of this is?
I have to populate my 3D space with some object. And the most simple way to do that is to add some cool images like that.
Right.
Okay. I can add some podium here, for example, because sometimes it's much more cooler to have the image on top of something than rather in the free space like that. So you have to choose. And the most interesting part of this option is the action you can put on your object. So here, for example, by default, you have the inspect option. On trigger means what happened when you click the left button of your mouse. And more action means what happens when you click on the right button of the mouse. So here you have the list of all type of action you can have. So if you click on inspect, the object will pop up and will take almost all the screen space. You can as well open the object in a new tab. You can link to another space, or you can play a specific audio sound, or you can link to a specific URL, which is probably the most important thing for what we want to do, because as I said before, at some point I want to use this space to connect to a Teams meeting. So here I can do that if I copy paste here directly the link of my Teams meeting. And so if I do that, I save as a draft. I can publish as well. If I click right on this object, so my object is in my 3D space, as I said. And if I click right on my object, I can see that directly linked to this image, I have the option to join my Teams meeting. So if I click there, it will open the Teams thing. I will not do that because it can close our meeting. But you understand the idea that directly going from this 3D object, I can go to my Teams meeting, which is what I wanted to do at the beginning. So this is one example of the object we can have. I can add some text, obviously, in my 3D space. So here, for example, I can put some big map. And I can put that in front of my map, for example. Here, okay. I can have some people artifact. I have some video. So very cool thing is that I can embed directly a video in my space. I'm not sure which one is it, but let's try this one. Okay, should be there. Okay, here I have a pretty cool fireworks video closer to me by reducing the distance. And it will, I have the impression that it's coming to me. A cool option on the object is I can, once I have spent some time to define all the parameters of one object, I can replicate this with a second very similar object. So just to show you. Okay, so here I have my video. So obviously, when my video is in my 3D space, it can be run small size or it can be run full size. So that's pretty cool way to play some video. So that's another a great use case for any SharePoint Spaces, is that you can embed any video inside the space, and that's very easy to view the video in this space. You can file viewer as well. So most of the 5 top objects on this toolset are a 2D object, and the 5 on the top are 3D objects. So what is a 3D object? Let's try, for example, a 360-degree image. For 3D images, you have 2 options, in fact. Either you have capabilities to record directly from your phone or from your specific device 360-degree images, or you choose a standard image and the system will transform it to a 3D image. So here, for example, I have my map, which is displayed as a globe. And when I publish the globe, you can see that here it is. So the system is, I would say, transform your 2D image in and put it on a sphere like that. So it's quite interesting because it's really a good way to transform a 2D images in 3D space. You get the idea. It's very similar with the video. If you put your video, you can choose to have a 3D video or to put your 2D video in a 360 video. The most probably interesting object is 3D object. What is a 3D object? It's, as it said, a model of anything in 3D. Here I have some samples of recently used models. So I can definitely upload any files I have on my PC or I have in OneDrive or in my site. But Microsoft is also provided a very cool 3D catalog. So if you go there, you have a list of several tons of models. Some of them are animated. You have a small running guy on the left to show some animations, that there are some animation in the model. And here, for example, I can choose a bee. And here it is. So here I have my 3D object incorporated in my space, and I can play with it. I can turn it on every side. So that's pretty cool. Just to show you another example of an object, a 3D object. The interesting thing about this library of 3D objects is that they are available in PowerPoint as well. So if you go to insert in your PowerPoint, you go insert a 3D object, you will see the exact same catalog of 3D objects. The fish here are very cool usually. Okay. So here we can see that one 3D model can have several 3D objects in it, as we can see here, and they are populated by several fish. So that's how it works, and that's how you can create a space with, so the most interesting part is that you can put video in it, and you can as well put some link to any other spaces. As we don't have so much time, I will go directly to my site content to show you the page library. So here we are on a very usual SharePoint site. And if we go to the site pages, we can see that we have created a New York City demo here. So it's just a new SharePoint page of some sort. We can see here, for example, that some pages I've created, some spaces I've created are just check-in, check-out, and in draft mode. So these spaces are exactly like a SharePoint page. If we go to the good one, for example, we can see that we can populate a whole space. Here it is. And when you load it again, it will recreate the object at that time. So you can see that it's loading here some objects. So that's how our lobby for our full event could be like. And here, for example, I have a link to the keynote. I have a link to every room. And I can put as well some information for my attendees, some documentation or some video or some PDF, things like that.
Patrick, a couple of questions coming through. Is this E3, E4? What's the licensing SKU on this?
It's a standard SharePoint license, so E3 is enough. And I think it's even available for E1. So you just need a standard SharePoint online license.
Okay. And the integration here, like, is that, I'm assuming this is pretty newish. When did this actually formally go live?
It can be seen as directly in SharePoint. And if we speak about integration, the cool thing is that we can think to integrate it. So let's go back to Teams. And we can just add it in as a tab in Teams. So here, if you go to your standard SharePoint option,
right,
you will be able to integrate it as just as a standard page, as I said. Yeah. So here you have, for example, New York City demo. And no, that's it. You have it in your Teams. So you can definitely make a great integration between your Teams and your lobby in SharePoint Spaces. And you can even manipulate it and go in it directly into Teams here. Or if you want, you can hide the left bar of Teams, and you have your space directly from there. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
So that's mostly what I wanted to show you for the demo. Let's go back to the slide. So here we have seen almost the most important thing we can do to create and to build and to populate our spaces. The first thing should be aware is that you have some prerequisites. So if it's not activated, you should activate a feature at the site level in your SharePoint feature.
Right.
So we have seen that design. We have seen everything. SharePoint pages, space. So mostly you should remember that you have 2D space, 2D object and 3D object. Here are some sample of 2D objects, 3D object. We have seen some of them. And here we have some other example. Video, image, sample. One thing we didn't see in the demo, but you can see it here, is a 3D document library. And if you want to display a set of documents, you can do that with this 3D object. So that's that's pretty cool. But you should know that that's not you can't see the whole document as we can see on this GIF animation. We see only the first page, and then if you click, if you want to open it, it will open it. It will open the document in a standard Office Online display. Action, we have seen the action available. By now, you can only have up to 5 actions on the button.
Right.
What is 3D? In fact, 3D can be defined in very simple ways. It's a way for computer to use 3-dimensional representation, but to do some calculation and to render this in a 2D image, because your screen, as my screen, mostly 2D display nowadays. In fact, we are transforming the 3D object or 3D space we want to render in 2D images. This is mostly what is 3D in computer science. So we have basically 3 phases. First, we have to do some modeling. So we have to create some model of 3D object, for example, or 3D animals, as we have seen. We should put on them some layout and some animation. And at some point, computer is doing the rendering. How can you experiment it? In fact, it's very easy to experiment it in Windows because in Windows 10, you have three 3D tools available for free. The first one is 3D Viewer. And if you open the 3D Viewer option, you will be able to manipulate and to play with the bee on the right. As I said, in PowerPoint, you have a very rich set of 3D models already available. So you can definitely use it to manipulate the 3D models and to play with them directly in your PowerPoint. For example, you can find this helicopter, very cool helicopter that can be embedded in your presentation.
And can you add your own animation graphics into this?
Yes, you can, but for that, you should define your own 3D model or your 3D object. And for that, you can do that with the Paint 3D. So you have some option to create from a 2D image, for example, a 3D object in Paint. So
okay.
that's available.
Okay, so you can't get this from Shutterstock or Shutterstock.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Last important thing you should know is what is mixed reality. Mixed reality is a merge between real and virtual, and this is what we have seen mostly. Virtual reality means if you are totally immersed in the virtuality, and augmented reality means that you add some virtuality to a real space. So you should think all this as a continuum between the real world and the virtual world. And if you have some part of virtuality, you are in augmented reality. And if you are very close to the fully virtual world, you are in augmented virtuality. So this is definitely a continuum of space between both real and virtual. Here you can also find some interesting link to add some more object and background images in your SharePoint Spaces. So very interesting thing, you can go to Google Maps and add some SharePoint Spaces background image directly from Google Maps. So that's pretty cool. For example, if you want to create a background of New York City or things like that. What is SharePoint Spaces? SharePoint Spaces is a web authoring tool. So you can define anything that can be authored in 3D or mixed reality. And it is designed to help customers telling rich immersive stories. So that's the definition Microsoft is giving. And they are giving as well some scenarios. So we have seen event, how to launch event or how to create event with SharePoint Spaces, but you can imagine as well onboarding and campus tours. You can imagine product catalogs and trainings, and you can imagine new product launch. I would especially go to the training part because, as I said, it's very powerful to embed videos directly in SharePoint Spaces, so that's a very cool use case. And that's the last slide. Here is the link to the support page. And here on the right, you have some resources I have put for you in a way. So thank you very much.
Patrick, thank you.